and his religion was in Arabia. But instead of 1500 years that took Christ comes, in this case just about 40-50 years, Imam Hussein comes out of it and took Islam out of Arabia and took it and made it universal, not to Europe, but it came back to Iran, and all the Iranians, because of Imam Hussein, they accepted Islam. Although at the beginning they were attacked by the Arabs, they soon understood what's going on. And this Christianity, unlike Christianity, Islam was a different, better windows of God, more updated. That is why when they encountered the Greek philosophies, they did not act like a virus in Islam, but it was very much compatible. This is why we have thousands of scientists in Islam. More than 1 million books have been written by Muslims, and the whole world was totally, in darkness. But in the Crusaders, something very strange happens. It's like that process of the cell meiosis or mitosis. When the chromosomes get, separated at one point called chiasma, and they give each other this chromosome, that chromosome, they exchange genes. In the Crusaders, when Muslims encounter their brothers, their Christians, in this cultural, really, upheaval and encounter, and many things from Islam went back to the Christianity, which according to everyone, it created the basis for the Renaissance in Europe. The Book of Avicenna, the greatest medicine man of Iran, was up until 17th century was taught right in England, in Oxford. But at this point, something happens. The baton of knowledge and science goes back to the Christians, and they took upon themselves to go and reveal the nature and understand the nature, while the Muslims, they went on trying to understand what is the reality and the meaning of human being and his relationship to God. Therefore, a lot of spiritual theories and spiritual ways just was developed by them. God, nobody knows in the world, because Muslims have been, even by all their Islamic regime, they have not been very good in translating these books. There's thousands of them. They have to be translated. It's amazing, actually. I brought all of this, that so Muslims, particularly Iranians, they went on to this matter of explaining humanity, human being, not as a social, not economical, but mostly the actual matter of what's his relationship with God and whatnot. So there we have a style, or let's say new sect, Sufism, which the whole thing is called Irfan, which means divine understanding, develops, and most of them spoken through poetries. Of the most famous one of them was Rumi's. You know him, Rumi. And they explain these things. That just I told you that, and they created many things, including of these 7 valleys that, at the end of it, man dies of himself and becomes God. One of them, which Louis Massinian calls him the Messiah of the East, his name is Mansur Hallaj. He said, I am God, and there's nothing under my robe but God. And the Caliph of the time, of course, they said this man is blaspheming God. They took him and they killed him, and there are a lot of miracles have spoken about him. And he created a new wave of trying to understand religion in a different way, particularly because Muslims are becoming Sunni and Shiites, and somebody was trying to find a third way, in a way that unites all of these things. Or they simply say they're all wrong. But this created a lot of problem, because if Hallaj is God, and God is speaking through him, then who's Muhammad? Muhammad is not a prophet of God. I'm just a messenger of God. So is Hallaj bigger than Muhammad? Nobody can explain these things in the Muslims realm. I have not seen one good understanding of what these things are. It is written that the greatest one of them all, according to me, and according, I think, to everyone, is Rumi, as you know him. It is written that he was in the market. Very strange story about him, because his father took him from all the way from Afghanistan, which those days was Iran. In a dream he had, brought the boy all the way to Konya, someplace close to Ankara, 3 hours south of Ankara, in Turkey today. And there, we stayed there where people were speaking Turkish, and this man is from Iran. But the dream led him there. And he always wanted to know what's the meaning of him coming down here. His father brought him here and whatnot. He went into religion. He had many, many students. He was really a huge teacher, clergy, I should say. Was a great clergy at the time. And one day in the market, he sees a kind of a baggy, a man of no stature, really like a beggar, dressed for the ruffians. He's talking to somebody, and he says to him, "Do you think Muhammad is greater or Bayezid?" Bayezid is another one like Hallaj who also said, "I'm God." And he's talking to this guy and to ask him that, "Do you think Bayezid is bigger or Muhammad?" The ordinary guy says that, of course, Muhammad is the prophet of God. He said, "Then why Bayezid says, 'I am God'? Where Muhammad says, 'I'm the messenger of God'?" The person confused, didn't know what to say. Rumi turned back and said, "Who is this bringing this kind of a topic in the streets? And doesn't seem like anybody." He tells him, "But could you please come today in my house? Be my guest." He goes there. The story I explained it once before. Finds out that this man is huge. This man is huge, and my point of view was here right now that it was a story that if we say Hallaj says, "I'm God," and Bayezid says, "I'm God," and the real martyrs died for their cause, then who's Muhammad who says, "I'm prophet of God"? This created seriously a confusions that the clergies totally, they call this kind of a talk and ideology as blasphemous, and they don't accept it. They say that if we accept Hallaj or this or that as what they say, and they claim that they are God, then who's Muhammad? And that is definitely incorrect. So, none of the Muslims have explained these things and what it means anyways, at the end of the day. Thanks to God that Baha'ullah has come and revealed Baha'i faith to us. And I explained these things in a very, very simple way, and ended up all this discussion. And the Baha'i faith, this prophethood from God, messengerhood from God, connection to God, whatever you want to call it, manifestations of God, are two types essentially in the Baha'i faith. One is specific, one is general, as it is in the Book of Certitude explained. A general one, Baha'u'llah says everything is manifesting the power of God. In this case, when it comes to the general manifestations, everyone is manifesting the power of God. Everyone. Some beauty, some science, some art, some poetry, some strength, physical strength, some mental strength, all of them, everyone. Anything that's good, he says, is the manifestation of God. Anything. Even a piece of stone, a flower, everything that you see, you can see God is manifesting His power in it. That's what Baha'i faith is. But when it comes to a specific manifestation, that belongs to only certain given people that literally they are called infallible. They cannot falter back. There are different species. Abdullah explained, just like man, whatever bad he does, he'll never fall to the state of becoming an animal. In this sense, it means that he will lose the power of thinking. unless, his brain is damaged. But if it's a human, he can think, animal can't. Not in a spiritual state, because poor animals are following the order of God installed in their bodies. Man installs a lot of wrong things in that way. There are people that, I don't know, you cannot, it's an insult to animal if you call them animal. By this, he means that the power of thinking will not be taken away from him. Whatever it has, you still can think. Or an animal doesn't become a vegetable because it can walk and talk and see. In that manner, there is no way for any man to become prophet of God, such as Baha'ullah or Jesus Christ or Moses or Buddha or Krishna or Abraham or Muhammad, Baha'ullah. Impossible. This is beyond the understanding. That is why Jesus Christ says, I am shepherd, your sheep. He's not insulting us. He's just trying to state a fact. He says, I'll take care of you, but you are sheep, but I am where I am. So, and there is no other way except going through the manifestation of God to go through. Some people, I said before, in the Islam, nowadays I explained that in the 65 and 66, that they think this mysticism or Sufism is a new wave that has been before, and this is the solution we have to go through, and we do not need prophets of God. We know what to do, and we'll get to it. They don't deny the prophets of God as the greatest spiritual leader, but they do not limit the power of God to them, thinking that they are the only way. They don't accept that. I explained that. This is not logical, because if you say that you can go to God on your own, then you're saying that there is no need to Baha'ullah. Then you're saying that he's martyred under the Bab, going to jail, writing all these books, 20,000 people martyred. All of them were really not necessary. He just did it. But we do not need it, really. One doesn't need to go through all of this. Then you're saying that Baha'u'llah says, I am the manifestation of God. Then you're saying he's lying. Or he's hallucinating. See, the implications of these things are big if you say you don't need him. You have to prove it. You can say that I don't need. You're very welcome to go ahead. But actually, they're not acceptable. I explained that before. You would have to go through those videos to find out in the recognition of Baha'u'llah why Baha'u'llah is different from everybody else. And clearly in the Kitab Aqdas, he says that it is impossible. There is no partnership in the infallibility with me, he says. I'm just the one on the top and there's nobody around me. This is not a statement of arrogance, not at all. In many occasions he says, when I compare myself to one of the believers of God, I find myself as utter nothing. What else do you want him to say? It's not in a state of arrogance. It's a state of fact. Like in the class, teacher has to say, I am teacher, you have to follow. If not, the class will never pass the subject, will never get graduated. All right? And obedience to him is for your strength. But obedience to this, guys, they call themselves spiritual, is that they want power from you. You obey them, they become powerful. But if you obey Baha'u'llah, you become powerful, not him. He's gone, he's not here, body-wise anyways. So, there are other points in this to tell you that when the 7 valleys of the Muslim comes. Baha'u'llah explained that in his book and says that the whole thing can be done in 1 second, he says. There is 7 processes, but one could reach such a spiritual height that get it in 1 second. Some takes years to get there, he says. And whoever you are, he says, you have to follow the rules of Baha'u'llah. Without those rules, you're going to fall. It's because, again, you can say, I believe God. It's general. You want to be specific, then you have to call it Baha'u'llah. They can say God, but you want to be specific, you have to say Christ.